to what group does the question mark sample belongs to and why? K-nearest neighbor classifier is a classifier that implements that is very close to how we intuitively will assign a class to a new sample. Intuitively, we will not just look at the nearest sample, for example. We will look at a set of samples that are closest to this evaluated sample, and then we will look at what is the most common class within that set of near samples. So it predicts the most common class amongst the k nearest samples. In the example that we see on the slide, when we receive a sample that we want to evaluate, the first thing we need to do now is to calculate the distance between that evaluated sample and all the samples in our training data set. And then we identify the k nearest samples. In this case, if k equals 3, those are the 3 nearest samples. And then we look at the classes, at the class that is most commonly found within that subset of samples, and we assign that class to the evaluated sample. So what are the hyperparameters and the parameters of the KNN classifier? In terms of hyperparameters, we have what type of distance metric we're going to use, but also K, the number of samples that we are going to look around the evaluated sample. It's also a hyperparameter. We cannot find which is the optimal value of K by just looking at the training data. In terms of the parameters, as it's usually the case in distance-based classifiers, we just need to keep track of the training data. We just need to save the training data in memory. KNN classifiers can build very complex decision boundaries while being robust against outliers. As we increment k in the slide there from k equals 1 to k equals 5, we see how we get rid of some isolated regions that were potentially just outliers. This is one advantage of the KNN, one big advantage. Other advantages are that they are an intuitive and a straightforward concept. They are easy to implement and use. The training process is very fast, and they can model complex decision boundaries. In terms of the disadvantages, they can be very expensive from the memory point of view, because as I said earlier, we need to save all the training data. And they can be inefficient during validation if we have a very large training data set, because we need to calculate the distance between the evaluated sample and each of the samples in our training data set.